Doug just took off to pick up the chicken for the luncheon, so I'll kind of report on Doug. Doug gave the treasurer's report, and currently we have $14,270 in the account. He also, our secretary is not here today, so I'll give a short report on the fall meeting. We had our fall meeting in October at Kentucky State University and had about 20 people in membership, 20 members there. Rick Besson gave a really nice talk on controlling weevils for small growers, for pecans and hickories. Can you hear me better? And they made a motion to make me acting president. So I'm John Strang, for those of you that haven't met me. Clifford England reported on our Facebook page. Clifford, raise your hand. He keeps our Facebook page up, so he's putting the newsletter up there, and we agreed to put all of our newsletters up there eventually, not make it so you had to be a member to get into the site. We're trying to build our membership back up after COVID. It's been a long, slow deal, and I'm not recognizing some people that I used to know before before the pandemic. Let's see. We're going to keep the newsletter price at $5 a year and or $8 for 2 years. And we talked about some ideas for the newsletter. If you've got some ideas or articles you'd like to put in the newsletter, we are very open. Sherry Crabtree puts that together for us. Let's see here. We wanted to amend the bylaws, and I'll announce these. We'll have to put this in the newsletter and then vote on that at a future meeting. But basically, we wanted to switch from publishing 4 newsletters a year to 2 newsletters a year because our membership is down and we're having trouble getting everything together. And then we wanted to merge the recorder and secretary position into one position with the same verbiage that's already in there. So we'll bring that up at a future date. The nominating committee. Sorry, I'm juggling papers here. We have a nominating committee suggested to be Clifford England, Fred Blankenship, and Carl Klein. You guys want to put your hands up so everybody knows? Okay, very good. And I'm nominated to be president. Vice presidents are Fred Blankenship, Carl Klein, Harold Upton, and Larry Dalton. Directors are Kenny Beard, Clifford England, and Carl Klein. Secretary will continue to be Blake Cothran, but we're having trouble getting a hold of him. Don't have a recorder. Nobody can remember who the recorder is. That's a good reason to merge the treasurer and recorder's position. Lucky Pittman has agreed to be our new treasurer. And then editor and publisher are Kirk Pomper and Sherry Crabtree. Sherry let me know that Kirk couldn't make it today. He was planning to be here from Kentucky State University, but he's been up in the administration and he had too many things he had to do this weekend. The auditing committee is Clifford England and Danny Gano. Local arrangements and meeting site are and membership are myself and Clifford England. Program committee is myself and Clifford England. Wards is Doug Hines. Editorial committee is Kirk Pomper and Sherry Crabtree. And we're holding off on the historian position. John Britton passed away roughly 2 years ago, and we're going to think about the historian position a little bit. Do I hear a motion to accept the, well, are there any nominations from the floor? Do I hear a motion to accept this slate by acclamation?
Make a motion, we accept it.
Okay. And Clifford, okay. Very good. The motion is passed. We're open for meeting suggestions for future meetings or ideas for the newsletter. If anybody's got something, just see me and we'll get those put in. For our fall meeting date, we're looking at 2 dates of October 21st or October 28th. And we've got several possibilities. Previously, we've held it at Henderson, Kentucky, or Owensboro Extension offices. There was a suggestion for a Caldwell County Extension office, that's at Princeton. And then we have an A&R, Ag and Natural Resources agent, at the Marshall County Extension office, whose family grows pecans in Illinois, and she's put a pecan planting event. This is in Marshall County, and she offered to have the meeting there this fall. The board suggested that we have the meeting at Benton, Kentucky, and I will talk to the agent to see if either of these dates work for her. But do I hear a motion from the floor that we accept that as a fall meeting?
So moved.
Pardon?
Yeah.
Write this down. Second?
Second.
Okay, those in favor? Okay, great,
Aye.
thank you. Okay. And then for our spring meeting next year, typically the dates are Saturday, April 20th or Saturday, April 27th. And we're thinking about this. We had the meeting here today because we've had the spring meeting in E-Town for many, many years. They started charging for this facility. It's $300 for the day. So we're thinking about moving it. We thought it was important to have it here to get past the pandemic a little bit. But I'd like to suggest we hold it at the KSU farm in Frankfurt to give an award for somebody that doesn't normally come to the meeting. Let me put it that way. And so if they're available, we'd like to have it at the KSU farm. An alternative place would be the Bardstown Extension office, which can handle this, and there wouldn't be a charge there. So, and I stopped by on the way home yesterday. I came down to pick the key up, and Robbie Smith there said, yeah, we can hold it here, no problem. So as long as they've got the dates open. So I will check with them. I'll check with KSU to see if they're open for those dates. Sorry, you got to put this in your mouth, Fred. So do I hear a motion that we accept one of those dates in the KSU farm for the meeting, the spring meeting coming up?
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Okay, that concludes our business meeting unless somebody has something else you'd like to bring up. Okay. Our speaker is Fred Blankenship. You ready, Fred?
Ready as I ever be.
Been ready. Fred's had a health issue caused by a deer last week, so if he wants to sit down, that's fine with me, or if he wants to break it into 2 sections, that's fine. We've got a handout here of his presentation, and I'll turn that over to you, Fred. And we're going to put part of this will be updated. This is a listing of Fred's recommended hickory varieties in the newsletter. And let me make sure that's working, Fred. We're good, it didn't go to sleep. Okay. Would you like a chair up front?
No, I'll sit here.
Okay, all
I'll
right.
sit here. I can do it just as good here as anywhere else. I'm very impressed with the people that came today. We have visitors from Buffalo, New York, from Kingsport, Tennessee, and from Western Kentucky. And I don't know where else, but very key individuals. This first slide is shagbark and shellbark. main emphasis on this tree right here on the right. This is Simpson #1, and you can't see these people individually, but there's Mr. Simpson, John Strang, and Mr. Fountain. And John Strang and Mr. Fountain had a German tool called a resistograph, and it bored a small 1/8-inch hole into the tree, and as it bored into the tree, it read out a graph of the growth rates, and they were very close together. And I had to measure the graph out in 1-inch spaces and count each peak, which was a growth rate. And according to the growth rate, the tree was at least 600 years old. And that's phenomenal age, but it was older than that. And there's a tree up the lick here, which is what they call a creek in Kentucky, that was probably older than this one. But this one had been damaged by fire and lightning. And when I sent my resistograph graph and the what was that board called? Anyway, I sent them off to Grauke in Texas A&M, and he aged the tree at 263 years, which is the accepted age of a mature hickory. But I put a ladder up this tree 24 feet and cut a limb off about right there that was over 240 years old, so I know Mr. Grauke was way off. This is typical shellbark leaves. Yeah, this is typical shellbark leaves. It's 7 leaflets, and they can go up to 11 or more, but typically there are 7 leaflet leaves. And even some shagbark can throw 7 leaflet leaves, so which shows that they share genes. This is a shagbark leaf, typically, and this is bitternut leaf hickory. Bitternut has 64 chromosomes, and shag and shell have 32 chromosomes, and so does pecan. I think it skipped a slide. There we go. Now, you can't determine what kind of hickory it is by looking at the bark. Granted, this one over here is shell bark, but shagbark can have a pretty tight bark without much flaking. And the Simpson #1 tree had bark like this. Here's some examples of shell bark and shag bark. There was several really nice cultivars brought today. The best of show was brought in by Glenn Lawford from Buffalo, New York. I really think it is a Granger seedling because I have a Granger seedling at my place that I call Lorraine, which is almost identical to it. Mockernut has 7 leaflet leaves. They're fuzzy underneath, and they're usually annual bearing. I'd say this is mockernut, but can't see it real good. My deal with selecting seedlings is lenticels. And lenticels are the gas exchange ports of a tree. And if it has large lenticels and they're elongated, but on hickory and pecan they grow up and down, they spread up and down. On black walnut they more or less lateral. But when I'm selecting a seedling, this is what I look for before I even choose it to be grafted to. Yeah. Okay, we've got cross sections here of shell bark. When you see this real deep ribs into the tree, that's probably not gonna crack out too good. This cross section right here is Simpson #1. Uh, the old timer that knew about that tree called it the round nut tree, and it's more round than most hickories. This is Lindauer, of course. Lindauer has good sized meat, but these ribs hook the kernel, so you know it's not gonna break out clean. This is Simpson. You can get big pieces of kernel out of that variety right there. Once it gets to producing, it's usually annual and produces a lot of nuts. This is your, I don't know if that's Ican or not, but this is Carria catkins, we'll put it that way, probably hickory. And that's the pollen that pollinizes the pistillets on the tree. Hickory start bearing within 20 years, maybe less for some. But an indicator is when the trunk starts to swell down here at the base. You know that it's getting ready to bear. You know that taproot's got some good size and there's lots of roots out there to make a nut. Last fall, I went around my place and collected different nuts and sawed them in half to check the cavities out. And down toward the end, I wound up sawing Granger relatives in half, And down here on the end is Lorraine. And I dare say if you cut one of Ken Loffer's nuts in half, it would look very similar to that right there. That was a rush job, but it was very interesting. This is an old nut board that we Kentucky Nut Growers had, and that's Larry Dalton back there. He has a good cultivar called Dalton Shellbark, big nut, decorative, big leaves. I don't know if there's one on the board there or not, but there's some popular cultivars on that board. Varieties. Do you see any in there? Well, up here at the top, we got bullnut, browse, and there's another one in that pasture. There's a bull pasture up in western central Ohio. And the man would let him collect browse and other varieties, but he didn't want him to collect Roush. But I granted all three of them, got all three of them growing, and to me, browse is the best one. Got lots of pollen on that one today. Fayette, this is probably one of the best shellbark cultivars to graft. Henning is, I got some good henning that are buried. I've got Keystone grafted, but its kernel comes free from the shell. Ernie Greenville sold a variety of Keystone, but me and my friends determined that his Keystone was actually an Eder Hickhan. And my friend Zach Elfers from Pennsylvania went to Eder's orchard and found the Wesky and what's that giant? McAllister pecan within pollination range of each other, and found the Eder seedlings that John Gordon sold grafted trees to Ernie Greenville as Keystone. And my friend Tyler Halvin and I determined that his Keystone was actually an Eder Hickhead, which was proven by Zach Elfers from Airville, Pennsylvania. Zach is young, he's not 30 yet, he's got tremendous collection of hickory and very precocious individual. He's been to my place twice, he collected sign wood. He even mapped it out the last time he was there. He talked about somebody was busy because, you know, I have so many cultivars. I have all these grafted. I have Lindauers that are going to come into bearing this year, but I don't know if they're going to be anything like the parent Lindauer. Okay. You see that hitting would crack out. There's hinting and hinting seedling. Yeah. It don't crack out as good, but the parent is better. It makes great big nuts. Oh, this is a better picture of us at the Simpson tree. The individual on the left there is Richard Simpson. There's a creek back here. And during World War II, a doctor bought the property, and the creek used to come around here, and he rerouted the creek over there and put that tree on his property. Of course, I don't think he knew what kind of tree Simpson was, but let's see, Fountain must have took a picture. We're measuring the tree there, and it was 32.5 inches in diameter. And this is the limb I sawed off. It was over 240 years old. Those growth rings are so close it looks like a stack of newspapers. This limb here was on this. It's over 40 years old. And Dr. Bill Reed said heavy bearing trees have a slow growth because of trying to make a crop every year. And this little valley here is full of very large hickory. This is Simpson one I sent to somebody and they graded it. And you can see what kind of crop it puts on after it gets going. So 3s and 4s. Mr. Tinsley said that some years that tree had such a heavy crop it looked like it would tear the limbs off. So once you get going, it'll keep producing more nuts. This is Roush. This is one of the nuts from the bull pasture. It's a very large shell bark, but you know, it's to me it's a novelty. I'd much rather have Ken Loffer's Ernest than this nut any day. Merle's Best. This is a nut you want to plant out where you want to exhibit shell bark, you know, big glossy green leaves, big nuts, you know, big in the hull, and cracks out good. It's from Pinckneyville, Illinois. Okay. Shoal. This is one of my favorite shell barks. It'll crack out really good, and it's an annual bearer, but this year I think it got caught by the freeze. Browse. Now this nut turned out to be better than I thought. It's from the bull pasture, and it had a lot of pollen this year. So we'll see in the fall whether we get crop. Holterman. Holterman come from Loose Creek, Missouri, near the capital. Was it Jefferson City? Huh?
Jeff City. Jefferson City.
Jefferson City, Missouri, yeah. I got this from Leo Rowell, a Nebraska nut grower. And it's grafted in the shoal tree. But it cracks out good, you can see there. Kreider. Kreider was a friend of mine who was the Illinois newsletter publisher, and he sent me 2 samples of this very large shell bark and I selected Kreider. And one day I called him and to brag about, at that time it was called doodling. And I called him to brag about it. He said, you know, the woman cut the tree down. I said, Ralph, that cultivar is now known as Kreider shell bark, because I'm the only one that's got wood of it. Fed, you know, minimum ribs will crack out halves. And the sad part about it is the utility companies cut down the parent tree. Been there for hundreds of years and they cut it down. But a few of us have Fayette grafted. Lucky Pittman has a seedling of it that bears a nut almost identical to this. So I would collect that softwood and graft it. Bull nut, this is another one from the bull pasture. It's impressive, it bears annually, but it don't crack good enough for me. I would grow it for growing seedling hickory. 3s and 4s. Then we got samples of nut in the husk. There's Haldeman, Scholl, Mitch Russell. Mitch Russell was found by me near Bloomfield, Kentucky. I used to travel the back roads with a pair of channel locks and a hacksaw. I spotted hickory and I clamped it in the channel locks and saw it, have to check the cavity. And I run across Mitch Russell that way. Mitch Russell was a pioneer who bought 3,000 acres from Salt River South, north of Bloomfield, for $275. I think he was a Revolutionary War veteran, but and he planted the Mitch Russell seed, or his choice. It was the shell bark was a favorite of his, where he fished on the Salt River, which is now Taylorsville Lake. And he planted them all around his house, and this was the best one of them all. But there's another one that I call Branch Russell that was a short ways from the house that looks a lot like Mitch Russell. And it's an annual bearer, it's a hybrid, it's a shagbark, shellbark cross. And this is a board made up by my friend Tyler Halvin in Hopkins, Missouri. He's a Michelangelo, whatever he does an excellent job. You see Fayette over here, hardly any ribs at all. Then Simpson and Selvers. There's Granger, whoops. You see the Granger there, that's the caddy and shaped much like Greg Laufer's Ernst. I have Porter graft, but it's not bearing. I got Porter seedlings in the bearing, but they're not near as good as the parent. This is Lake Icaria from Lake Icaria, Iowa. It's a small nut, but it has excellent cavity and white kernel. I had a 100-year-old friend in Douglas, Illinois, and if the nut didn't have a white kernel, he wasn't interested. I don't know much about Bridgewater. Cookshag, I collected off of Highway 79 near Brandenburg. It'll crack out halves. Of course, Granger we know about. Porter has excellent flavor. Routable has a thin shell. The guy that sent me Routable Signwood is also the one that sent me the Lorraine Signwood. And Silvus 303 is a real thin shell Ohio variety, 45% kernel. That's really a thin shell. I don't know much about Wilmoth and Worth. I do know about Yoder. It's got good release. That reported to shed nuts with Weevils early in the season